Hi, and welcome back to Dishing with Dr. Duer. Pull up a chair because we're about to dig in. Today, we are talking about presents, the gift you give yourself, and not presents like a trip to Marshall's or a new Tiffany diamond necklace, although those are nice. Today, we're talking about the gift. I don't know. I've never had one. We're talking about the gift that you give yourself, being present. As I say all of the time, I am always trying to learn for myself. So you can trust that when I choose a topic, it's something that I'm working on personally or professionally. And this is definitely something that I've been working on. Today, we're joined by my longtime friend, Shannon Black, which I was thinking about it earlier. I have actually now known you more than half my life, right? So, yeah, accomplishment. Yeah. Yeah,
You're the young one in the group.
I'm trying to hang on to that, but the older I get, the less that's true. But I'm so excited to have this conversation with you, and Shannon knows that I'm going to talk about this. But one of the reasons that I chose you for this particular topic is I've always low key been jealous of Shannon and her ability to stop and smell the roses, which I'm sure we'll get into this a little bit as we talk through being present. But when I met Shannon, we were in college and I was going through some things and I was taking 21 hours and I was working 3 jobs and I was rushing. And that really just got to be a way of life for me. I always like my schedule was cram packed, and our little friend group, we would always joke, well, we know Shannon's going to be late. We just don't know how late. Right. But inevitably, she would show up and she would say something like, I'm so sorry that I'm late, but I saw the cutest bookshop and I just had to stop. And
Or I brought something. Look,
right.
I get to eat this.
And I brought you a treat. And you couldn't really be mad at it. And I was always in a way jealous because here I was rushing to get there, blinders on, definitely on time. I would get there on
Early.
time.
I don't understand. Early is
Right.
on time. I don't understand.
But then I had missed, I didn't stop for coffee. I didn't stop to say hi to the friend. I didn't, and I really look back on my college years. I was goal oriented and I graduated in 3 years. But then I look back at that and all of the life that I've missed because I was always like chasing the next. I was never really in the place I was. I know you do because Shannon is an English teacher and an avid reader. So that I can't remember which one it was, but in the Harry Potter series where Hermione had like the little time.
It's my favorite. It's the Prisoner of Azkaban.
Yeah. And she, she would like
What'd you just-
appear.
You were. Yes, it was.
But never really.
That's another joke with my other friend who, oh, I took off my ring. It's a rose ring, interestingly enough. She teases me about being a time turtle. Like, you peel into the parking lot at 7:15, you come up in your room and it's 7:05 and you're not late.
But yeah, and so never really being where I was. I was always in the next place. And that's something that as I've grown older, I'm not even going to say that's what made me wiser. I'm not even going to say I'm wiser. But really, when I started really digging into trauma informed care and educator wellness and self care and all of those things, mindfulness is something that comes up a lot. Presence, being present, grounding, all of those things. And that was definitely just kind of foreign to me. So it's been a really interesting journey to get better at that because it feels icky to preach that to people and not do it.
I don't think you're very preachy either.
Well,
That's good.
right. That's a goal. So I'm glad to hear that. But there was one in particular. I was doing a session on post-holiday peace for teachers. There was, right. And there was a YouTube video that I came across that I absolutely loved. And I don't know if you've ever seen this or heard this story, but it was kind of the parable of the jar of life. So the professor came in and he had a jar and he put in these big rocks, right?
Yep.
And it was up to the rim. And he asked his students, is the jar full? And, they were all like, yeah, the jar's full. And so then he took some smaller pebbles and he poured them in and they, settled. And at this point, the students are like, I kind of see. And he's like, is the jar full now? And, some of them hesitate, still not really getting the lesson, but they're like, I think so. Yes, I think the jar's full. So then he pulls out some sand and he pours that in. And then it trickles into all the tiny places. And and then I think he even finished with water. Like there was a whole other layer. But his point was your big rocks are your important things, your priorities, your faith, your family, your whatever you choose is your priority. And then the little pebbles are things that are important. Like we have to go to work, we have to pay the bills, we have to take care of our responsibilities, that those kinds of things. And then the sand is all of those distractions, right? Y- maybe it's social media, maybe it is TV, maybe it whatever it is we feel
Amazon.
shop. Yes. We're doing no purchase in January and it's really hard. But yeah, so those little things that are our distractions. And the point that he made with his students was when we put the sand in first and the pebbles in first, then we have no room for our rocks. And I have to remind myself of that often. I don't think it's like I saw it once and I was like, okay, I got this. But I think we hear a lot. There's just not enough hours in the day. And I know for myself, I probably have said that a lot and I feel that a lot. When you're looking at your priorities and how you prioritize things, it hits different when you say, I didn't make time for that today.
Yes.
Versus I didn't have time for that. There wasn't enough time for that
I
today.
use that on my students a few times. That wasn't a priority. Try that, see how that sits. They
Yeah.
smile. Oh, it's wonderful.
Yeah. It doesn't feel good though, right? It doesn't feel good to say, I didn't have time to call my mom today, or I didn't have time to
What makes it sound like it was something outside of your choosing?
right.
It happened to you.
Right. I didn't have time
Rather than
to go
choice.
eat lunch with my kid for Thanksgiving lunch, or I didn't have time versus
Those can be dicey.
I true. I don't ever actually eat the Thanksgiving lunch. But it's the presents that matters,
Yes.
right? The
Yes.
presents. And so it definitely hits different when you have to say, I didn't take the
I
time
didn't make the time.
to, or I
That was
didn't
not a
make the
priority.
time. Right. And so that's something that has kind of sat with me while I'm thinking about the gift of being present and how we really choose to spend our time, because it is a choice. Sometimes it doesn't feel like a choice, but it is a choice. The other thing that's relatively new that I was thinking about, we're right on the edge of social media. Like I remember Facebook being brand new. God, I hate to say this, but it
Y'all
was
teased me about not having my phone on me when you tried to reach me. I don't take my phone with me everywhere. That's when it was a Nokia
yeah.
brick.
But it was I was in the midst of college when that got to be a thing, but it's definitely driven. I'm sure everybody's heard the term FOMO, like fear of missing out, which I think I'm wired that way anyway. I was that kid that would never take a nap because you might do something
Might
without
miss
me. I might miss something. So I think there's a little hardwiring there, but I think that fear of missing out drives over commitment too. I don't want to miss an opportunity. I don't want to, right? And so then, at least for myself, I
No,
don't know,
I
yes,
appreciate
I'll
the
do
part.
that. I can make that happen. I can squeeze that in. And then I think sometimes that builds resentment, even when you were the one that chose it. Have you ever experienced that? Where you're like, yes, yes, I can do it. Yes, I can squeeze it in. And then,
I think a fair point to add to that though is you're a goal oriented person. So
true.
while you do have that fear of missing out, you knew like, well, but I have goals. And so that need to tick the boxes, sure, and to not miss anything. I think two things can be true at once. But
Absolutely.
what was the original question?
Like, have you ever experienced you chose to squeeze in the thing, but then you resent that you missed something else because you overcommitted?
I think for me, as a person who tends to overcommit, I have always been very aware of selfishly what am I most interested in. And so while I did have FOMO, and this is kind of what we talked about before, is I'm a very freedom and choice personality. And so if it means I have to miss out on that thing that I really wanted to do, this means more to me as a freedom and choice person. So like even when people would say, if you're earlier on time, if you're on time, you're late, and if you're late, you're really late. I I was never that person to show up 30 minutes late. I mean, or early. I was never the person to show up 30 minutes early because I'm like, but there's so much I can get done in 30 minutes. And so as a result, either I do end up like I'm that person who gets up at the same time every day, but I've recently started doing exercise. And it's like, how do you get up at 5 a.m. and find yourself late? But get up at 6 a.m. and it's no problem. Like I've never understood that about myself. But it's because I try to squeeze those things in. So it's for me, it's less about resenting or regretting and more just of sometimes it's did I do enough? Even though I squeezed in the extra thing, it made me late, but there were still things to do. So I don't know that I've ever resented squeezing something in more than I thought about the things that are still not done, no matter how much I squeezed in.
So I think then probably we have a different motivation for what we squeeze, right? I think that's a really good point. So I'm actually,
The why?
yes, the why. So I'm actually really excited. I had an epiphany. I'm writing a book about figuring it out. Confessions of a Cortisol Junkie. Just hang tight. I'm working on chapter 3. The reason that I tend to squeeze things in is a people pleasing. So it's not that I'm choosing what makes me happy or what I think is most interesting. I'm choosing
Other people.
everything because I'm trying to fix this for you and make you happy. And so this, oh my gosh, look at me. I'm doing therapy again on myself. So like a common scenario, hacked my schedule pretty tight and I'm a planner. So I'm even like to the point where, logically traveling, this makes the most sense. And there was a day I had to stop by maybe and pick up a prescription. I was going to pick up this thing. I
Just
needed
something
to
like
be
me.
here. And my daughter called and she was like, Mom, I forgot my lunch. Could you please, do you have time to like swing by Chick-fil-A?
Nope.
I really did. I
Nope.
really did not. But I'm like,
Some people.
oh, but then she's not going to have lunch and she's going to be hungry. Now, in some other episode, I'll tell you how important it is to let your kids learn from their mistakes. But did I this time? No,
That's
I
a
didn't.
different
Right. That's a
different lesson.
different podcast. So I squeezed it in and I had planned my morning to the T and it was going to be fine. And then I squeezed it in. And so I took her lunch, but then I had to really watch myself not to say snarky things to her about how now I'm late for everything. Now I'm stressed. Now I'm going to squeal into the parking lot and sit down for this meeting. And instead of being prepared, I'm going to feel stressed. But that's not fair to her because I did that.
You chose it.
I chose that.
How does that feel?
It feels awful, to be honest, which is why we're talking about giving yourself the gift of presence. So one of the things that I saw recently that I really liked, and I'm going to reiterate when we get to the end, but and one of the things that I've started working on is operating at 85%. So for you people that are type A people pleasers, got the checklist. For me, if I don't have a ton of stuff on my calendar, I'm like, what am I even doing? Right. And so it feels like it needs to be full. But when I fill it to 100% and then life happens, then I'm over my max or stressed. And so something that I've been working on in order
I just
to,
saw a budget in my head. The way you were describing that was a metaphor for a budget.
yeah,
I have all this money. I have no money.
right.
I have all this
Exactly.
time. I have no time.
Exactly. That happens to me a lot. It actually happens the most on days that I don't have appointments scheduled because it's almost like people know and they're like, could you, can you, we have this, we have this situation. And in my position, I do respond to crises. So there are things that come up. So that's one thing that I've been trying to get better at is leaving some room so that when that happens, I'm not and frustrated. But then also, how am I prioritizing?
Saying you're wise. You're like, I don't know if I'm wise, but because we figure it out. You get wise counsel and you choose your friends with care.
Yeah, I'm working on it. Maybe that's what's made me wiser is I'm actually the first step in recovery is knowing you have a
Acknowledging
problem.
problem.
Um, so I think it's important to kind of like you said, when you're choosing what you fill your time with, before you squeeze in the next thing, thinking to yourself, is this something I want to do or something I feel like I have to do? And then being able to say, actually, I am already booked or I can't squeeze that in today. And that's something that I've gotten a teens better at. in my professional life because there's been times where I'm like, okay, let me look at my Apple Maps and see if I
You
can
may
get
not
from point
be
A to point
you may
B.
not be taken seriously as a professional if you don't.
Right. But you also aren't taken seriously if you show up late and
Late. Right.
unprepared and looking like a hot mess. So that's been a little bit of a balance. And I've had this conversation too, like with my mom. She'll always say, "Stephanie, be kind to yourself." And I'm thinking to myself, I am because I love all of these things.
Right.
Like there's not very many things that I commit to that I don't, like decorating for the homecoming parade. I love decorating. That's
Yep.
not a chore. And giving this parent talk, I love that. So it's not a chore, but then I love too many things and then I'm not there because I'm
Sure.
already trying to go to the next thing, I think. Fear of missing out can be an issue. So I guess my question, or maybe the conversation I was hoping to have with you, is how do we get to that mind shift from, oh my gosh, I'm late, to this
Mhm.
is worth it.
This is what I want.
This is worth it.
Okay, so
Like
being
what makes the bookshelf or the bookstore worth it to pull off the interstate?
well, part of it is my fun neurodivergence. Truly, like God bless my children and my husband and my students because I see everything, and
Mhm.
something's going on. My peripheral vision is really, really it's a blessing and a burden. Because did she hear that? She saw that. She saw it and she heard it. Knock it off. So I'm a high school teacher for those of you who don't know. So being able to see everything and observe everything and say, oh, look at that butterflies and all the things and that shouldn't be there. Maybe that's the OCD aspect of it too. I don't know. But I feel like somebody said it early on in my life and it made so much sense because you and I are very similar in that way. Like task oriented, goal oriented for the love. Please notice that I did that, not because I want a medal or a trophy because candidly, I never really cared about those things,
Right.
but the acknowledgement, which is funny because that's not my love language. I'm a physical touch and I'm an acts of service. When Drew does the things around the house, oh, it's like it's
Oh,
the best.
one
It's the
less
best way you
thing
can
that
love
I
me.
have
Yes,
to
one less
do.
thing that I have to do
Yeah.
as a task person, as a taskmaster, because I know I do it to them too, and I'm trying to be very conscientious of trying to pass on what somehow I figured out, which is you might miss this if you don't stop. And one of the things that okay, so my boys ride to school in the morning with me because we're not zoned for the school I teach at.
Oh, fun.
It's a blessing and a burden because candidly, they do a pretty good job of getting all because they have track in the middle of the day. Now they have track after school. So they've got to have the clothes and the
Hmm.
towels and,
All the
like
things
having other
together.
things that you need for a workout and going back to class for sixth and seventh. So trying to give them the freedom to figure those things out for themselves. And yep, you're going to have to use paper towels because you forgot your towel. No, I'm not going home. And no, dad will not bring you a towel even though he's at home because they
Yeah.
have to figure that out. But also helping them to see the sunrises the last several mornings have just been spectacular. And when we were in Louisiana for the 4 years we were there, the sky was just a gift. I didn't know growing up in Texas that anywhere else could be so beautiful.
Right.
And the sunsets and the sunrises were just spectacular in the Baton Rouge area. And so that's one of the things that I definitely notice. Whenever there's a moon, have you seen the moon tonight? Like it's a way of connecting that's not, hey, watch this video.
Uh-huh. That's another episode
Which
too.
is all
But
right.
yes. Yeah.
It's all right. Like, oh, that baby hedgehog is really cute again. Or how many seal videos or puppies can you watch? Really seeing like the roses. Like literally, I have had them stop. Guys, come smell this one. It's a yellow one. It smells different from the pink ones. And just really taking moments. Someone said it. I couldn't even tell you who, but someone said you're gonna miss it. And I'm a slow processor, but once I've got it, I've got it. And that just made all the sense in the world to me as a go, go, go person. I went from season to sports season to sports
Mhm.
season to student council to Spanish honors club to whatever.
Oh, you twang.
I know like we've always
Yeah.
had this in common, but there was it might have been a poem. It might have been in one of my English classes. I don't know. Like it was just very carpe diem. It wasn't YOLO.
Right.
It wasn't you only live once, be ridiculous or, reckless or anything. It was just very, you're going to miss it.
Yeah.
And I'm so thankful that I got that at a young age because having twins when both diapers need to be changed and and I was so grateful that I listened to take the pictures because you'll
Mhm.
get busy, especially when there's two. And at my wedding, oh my gosh, sit down and have a meal. Was it you? Were you the one who told me that? Someone advised me that sit down and have a meal at your wedding because people are going to come up to you and they're going to do whatever and they're going to do whatever. Sit and have a meal. Make sure you get a bite of your cake more than just the smash
Oh,
thing.
it definitely wasn't me because that was one of my, like,
The best.
the
It
best
didn't.
party I
It
ever
really was.
threw. Didn't even get to attend, really.
Yeah, because you were
No,
so busy trying to make sure everything was
what
okay.
was I had lists and
Yeah.
things and a schedule. I think truly that is one of my biggest regrets is not learning that sooner because it is
Mhm.
absolutely true. If you don't slow down, you do miss it.
I can hear a poem, "Better slow down, you're going too fast. Something, 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 the something won't last." Like,
Yeah.
I can hear
Yeah.
it's almost like a Dr. Seuss poem. "You better slow down, you're going too
You will
fast," or
be
da 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 da.
smart.
Yeah.
I felt that the most, like, I hope I don't cry.
I have tissues. So
What if I recognize that the most, like with Carson leaving. So
well, to be fair, he left earlier than
he cheated. But in my mind, when I started my doctoral degree, which is time consuming, no doubt. Chloe was a freshman, so Carson
Oh,
was,
yeah.
I don't even know. I can't keep track what grade he was supposed to be in. I think he was in
I
sixth
get
grade.
fair.
And I thought to myself, okay, I can do this. I will finish before Chloe's senior year because I will not spend her entire senior year saying I have a paper. And then I'll have 2 more years to do things with Carson and slow down and not miss it. Right. He skipped some grades, he did some things, and he left for college at the beginning of this year. But
Was
one
he
of
13 when he left?
yes, yeah,
That's right.
13. So one of our things, his whole kind of growing up is, gosh, I hope none of his friends they don't listen to this. But I always would tuck him in. And when I would go tuck him in is when we would have our, life conversations, things about everything.
Yeah.
Tough conversations, good conversations, jokes, whatever. But there were many times where I was so exhausted because I was doing work and then I was doing school and then Chloe had her sports and he had his things and I was just doing honestly too much.
Sure.
Yes, I'm a doer. I was doing too much. And there were many, many times where I would go up there and he would be, trying to show me a video and and it was always cold in his room. And I was just like, dude, I've got to go to bed. Like, my alarm's about to go off. I've got to go to bed. And I would rush that. And I think one of the hardest things when I realized he was leaving
Mhm.
was, did I miss it?
Yeah.
Because I was in a hurry
Yeah.
all the time. And I was always like the next thing, the next thing, the next thing, which he assures me he's fine. Sometimes I'm not sure if I am because I mean, those are things that you look back and you're like, that's not coming back. Like, I don't know. He's still young. He might move back in, but it's just, that's gone. Did I miss it? And there's so many other things in life that I look back and I'm like, I was just in such
I
a
think if you were
hurry.
to ask him to write something down or if I were to, Carson, just write down like what would you write down if I said, your mom and I had a conversation and she feels like maybe she missed out on some things. I feel like just from the moments and the seasons that I've shared with him, he'd be like, no way.
No,
Like
did
but that looks different for different people.
yes.
What does it look like to be there?
I had a moment when I was, gosh, if you've ever written a dissertation, it's the most, gosh, it's awful.
Sounds awful.
I it was like the worst summer. It was the best summer and it was the worst summer because Chloe was trying to get recruited. We were going to camps and tournaments and da,
I
da,
was tired reading
da.
what you were doing in the text you sent me or the call we had.
Right.
Like,
Like,
oh,
I'll see you guys in
I'm exhausted.
2026. But I had to finish, like, it was a deadline for my chapters 1 through 3, and I spent all summer on the road, and so I went to my office, and I literally, like, 6 a.m. to 7, 8 PM for, I don't know, 3 days in a row,
Mhm.
and that fell right when they were about to go back to school, and I remember just losing it, and I went up to his room, and I was like, "I am so sorry, I have a horrible mom," and he was like, "What are you talking about?" Like, he was not
Have you been busy?
right. He was not concerned. But for me, I felt very like I had not slowed down. I was missing the important things. I was missing the forest for the trees because I
Mhm.
was so focused on what had to be done next that I was definitely putting sand and pebbles ahead of my rocks. 100%. And so it's really been, I think, a journey of self discovery. One, trying to figure out why I do this to myself.
Mhm.
And then two, how do I make that mind shift from, gosh, I'm going to be late or I need to do this thing to this is more important
Mhm.
or this is what I really want to do versus I have to do.
I think the other thing that struck me was I feel like it was Tony Robbins' book. What book? One of them. It's like my best friend or my something. It's a tiny.
Uh-huh.
It's a little book, and he talks about shooting on yourself.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And I love saying that in class too because it's what did she just? Don't should on me.
Yeah.
Don't should on anybody. What'd she say? What you should do and what somebody else should do. It occurred to me that while I was listening to you, I also heard connections. And that's my other motivating reason. Why do I do the things that I do? I love connecting. I love connecting people. I love connecting with people. I love connecting people. I love connections. And I think that's another way that I connect with people is pointing out the things that maybe other people in their lives might not. And we have a young lady who lives with us who's actually a former student of mine, and we just connected. And this is my 21st year teaching, and there has never been a scenario where I'm like, that kid's got it rough. I wish I could just give them a home. I think I'll ask them to stay. That has never been a thing. And the more we connected, the more she and I talked in class, and I'd come home and tell Drew about it. I really, really think that she could live with us. And the fact that he was just because I would have suggested it, he knows that I wouldn't have suggested it willy nilly and that I was all about connections and talking about making time for things versus not. That was during my lunch break that she and one other girl who also had an incredibly troubled life and another young man who had whatever his issue was, he did not he was almost nonverbal. He was a very unique individual. He always looked underfed. Pretty sure I gave him food a couple of times. Very very quiet. And that was my lunch break from October of that year through May of that year. I didn't have lunch. I didn't sit with the other teachers. Whether that was a good thing or not was remains to be seen because sometimes it's not.
True.
Sometimes I even thought, "Oh, they're going to be in here so I can't get things done." And I'm very, very grateful because of being a connections person that there were days where I told them, like, guys, I've got to da da da. And they would go. And it was fine.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it was stopping and smelling the roses with these kids who needed a safe space.
Well, and that's what I'm thinking the entire time you're telling that story. Most people wouldn't have been present enough
Mhm,
to recognize the need or
mhm,
wouldn't slow down enough
mhm.
to say, you know what, I can grade those papers later
Yeah,
or ever.
yeah. That's the
Or,
other thing I've said. I've said that countless times. I'm sure I heard it from a mentor. I'm sure I heard it. But it was, you will never wish you'd spent more time grading.
oh, yeah.
And it was the simplest thing, like, because I would, especially when I was coaching and teaching. I decided to go back to coaching soon, and the possibility had come up, like, do I want to do that? And I'm looking at them and they're 16 and a half. They'll be 17
Yep.
very soon in July. And it's January. I mean, it's this year. They're about to get their learner's permit and be off doing their own thing. It's like, no, I need to be as present as I can be
Yeah.
because that's where a lot of parents start to kind of back away.
Yeah.
And that's where you've got to lean in because now they're making their own independent decisions, but they're still your responsibility.
Yeah. You're in their safety net.
Just in
Yeah.
case.
Well, and I just don't want to miss it.
Mm.
That was my thing finishing before Chloe's senior year and then
Mhm.
also
Mhm.
making the promise that I was not going to start some
It was a heck of a decision.
brand new
That was brave.
venture until she graduated because I did not want to, well, I can't make it to that because I missed the game or I missed the, whatever. Or if she needs lunch, like I want to be able to
Yeah.
do that somewhat.
Remember, my children ride to school with me every day. I
Right.
have to remind myself it is a blessing. It's a gift.
It really is.
Okay.
I tell you, when Chloe got her license, it has been very nice. Her select ball practices were an hour
All
and a half
yeah.
drive sometimes, and then 3 hours sitting there, and then an hour home or whatever. So it was great when I didn't have to do that twice a week. That was nice.
It became everybody else's schedule too.
But that's when we had all of our together, like, that's when we sang karaoke and, talked, spilled the tea,
Right.
talked about what's going
Right.
on at school and all of
Did
those
life
things.
together.
And so now that she does all of that by herself, then we have to be more intentional. And I texted her the other day, and I feel like I haven't seen you in 10 years. I've been at a really busy week at work, and then she had practice and other things, and she was home every night, but we didn't
Right.
like hang out or see each other. And so, yeah, like, it's a great thing when they get their license, but then it's a whole other kind of loss when they get their
Mhm.
license too.
Mhm.
I think really making that choice to be intentional about how I prioritize, what I choose to squeeze in. I've worked really hard at being more comfortable with calm, which I think is another
That
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 is
was a hard lesson for me.
yes.
Stillness, calm, peace.
Yeah,
That?
that's a lot of what my book is about, is the kind of the addiction to stress.
It's
Yeah.
mhm,
So,
makes
um,
sense.
it's been a learning discovery journey that I'm still on, and I hope you know that. I hope I can be like you when I grow up, where I do stop and, my gosh, that sunset is beautiful, or, well, have you read this
But
book,
wouldn't you agree
or
that doing these podcasts kind of does that?
a little bit.
Gives you a chance to sit down and have
Yes.
meaningful conversations.
Oh,
No.
absolutely. This has been so much fun, and I'm so blessed. Again, you asked me earlier what kind of inspired it, and
Mm.
I have been blessed to meet so many amazing people and have some really great conversations that have really shaped who I am. And so this podcast is a way of sharing those things with other people, and hopefully really helping people feel like they're not the only one that is struggling
Yeah.
with being present, or struggling with grief, or maybe they've figured out how to thrive, and they've got things that they can share. I honestly, every time I do one of these episodes, I get something out of it.
Mhm.
I mean, I remember I probably edited out a little bit, but my conversation with Laura, I got so excited about her hug it out. I was like, this is revolutionary. This is amazing. And so I get something out of every conversation that I have. And it does. I do have to be present when I'm sitting here. And
Mhm.
it's nice that I'm not rushing off to be somewhere else. So I did want to talk a little bit, kind of as we close out, some realistic ways
Mhm.
to practice. I always say practice because it doesn't happen overnight that you're like, no, I'm a calm person that's always present. And two, talking about how we don't have enough hours in the day. Many times people think, well, mindfulness or presence or all of that hoo-ha is just, nobody has time for that. And it really doesn't have to be a big time consuming thing that happens. You can make little changes. One of those I was talking about earlier, purposely operating at 75, 85%, knowing that you're leaving yourself that wiggle room. So when life happens,
When, not if.
when, yes, then you're not over capacity because you didn't overbook yourself to
Mhm.
start with. So that's
Yeah.
that's something that I've been working on. Another thing, I don't know if you've ever seen it. If you haven't, there is a TED Talk, Susanna Winters, and she's talking about practical self-care. And I love practical things because I hate it when
If
someone
it doesn't make
says,
sense, I'm not even going to consider it. Practical, I
well,
can handle.
and I'm all about big ideas, but don't tell
Yeah.
me that if I take 2 deep breaths a day, that my whole life is going to just
Mhm.
magically transform, because that's just not true. But she was talking about practical self-care, and her closing line that stuck with me was, what would your life look like if you showed up for yourself 30 minutes a day? It doesn't have to be this big thing, 30 minutes. And then you might be thinking, well, where do I squeeze in 30 minutes? Well, it doesn't have to be 30 minutes all at once. And she was like, 10 minutes of movement, doesn't have to be gym. That can be walking, that can be dancing in the kitchen, that can be yoga, that can be the gym, whatever that looks like. 10 minutes of movement, 10 minutes of time outside, time in nature, which there's a lot of research. That's probably another episode to go into all of that. But there's a lot of research in being outside, breathing fresh air, touching
Touching
dirt,
grass.
Yes.
The boys say that all the time.
Yes. So 10 minutes in nature and then 10 minutes. This one was the hardest one for me, and I'm still not good at it.
Stillness?
Stillness and silence. 10 minutes of stillness and silence.
Do I have to be awake? Can I be asleep for 10
Right?
minutes?
Oh,
Talk
that one
too.
is hard for me, but she talks about how it is a practice, and at first, the voices inside your head are so loud, "I should be doing, I could be doing, I should be doing." But when you put it in perspective, 30 minutes is not
Mm,
I mean, I spend that looking at Instagram dog videos. It's not that I saw one today, dogs with shoes, hilarious.
very funny.
But anyway, I could have
Shoes and everything.
spent that, 5 minutes taking time
Mhm.
to read something that was important to me. That was enjoyable, not something I had to do. That's a novel idea. That's one that I highly recommend watching. Susanna Winter's, I don't remember the exact title, but it's Practical Self Care. But really talking about the excuses we give
Yeah.
ourselves sometimes for not showing up for ourselves. And then
We're
another,
too busy showing up for everybody.
right. Yeah. But, it's hard to show up for everybody else when we're out and
Your tank has to be
yeah, absolutely. And then another one that I came across that I really liked was Fond, and it is find one new detail. I guarantee you, if you sat in this room, in this house that you live in, that you walk through every day, that if you sat and looked for one new detail, you would find something that you have not noticed before. But it's really that practice of just noticing, not being so in a hurry that you miss everything
I
around
guess
you.
that's what I do then. That's
Yeah.
what it is. I'm
Yeah.
very fond. I
Yes.
find one new detail everywhere I go.
It's a good
Ooh,
practice. This I just remembered this too. The Calm app. Are you familiar? Okay. They had it on sale last year. So I was like, okay, I'll try it. Because I sometimes have an incredibly hard time sleeping because this overscheduling that I do makes my mind very busy. And so I really like their sleep stories. But my favorite one is Matthew McConaughey. One, I could listen to him talk all day.
He wrote a book called Green Lights and he reads it on Audible, just so you know. Green,
I wanted to read it, but I'm going to
green
listen to
light.
it.
Listen.
All right. But his sleep story is Wonder,
Okay.
and it is so fantastic. But he's talking about how when we're kids, everything's new. And so we're like, look at that, look at that, look at that. But as we get
Wonderful.
older, we lose that. I've seen flowers, I've seen grass, I've seen a sunset, and we quit seeing things, noticing things. We quit being present. We quit being in awe of things that are really fantastic.
I think that's part of the English teacher thing too. I'm constantly making kids aware, like, okay, but look at why that sentence is so spectacular. Like
Yeah,
really doing that closer look thing. And so again, maybe there's just a propensity in some people just to have that find one
right.
new detail or whatever.
Well, it's
The one
inspirational to those of us that it did not come to naturally.
and that's
uh,
my mom too. I think it's fair to say that's my mom. Like, honey, look at this. Like she's always kind of been that way.
mhm.
And so I think I can definitely acknowledge that some of that comes from her, like whether it's an article or whether it's the look at the bloom on this flower. I had an early mentor that deserves some acknowledgement there. She
Yeah.
definitely has done that for me and my sister.
I
Yeah.
think that's a huge gift.
Both.
Listen to me. Listen to my pun. I think that's a huge gift that you can give yourself is presence. Truly, I do. It is a gift to be able to be present where you are, not rushing to the next thing, not constantly being worried about the next thing, but really truly enjoying the moment that you're in. And so if you're listening to this episode today, if nothing else, slow down. You don't want to miss it. There are so many wonderful things, even in taking the time to sit down and eat breakfast with your kids or let them pick the music and really listen.
Or read
Mm,
Fahrenheit 451 like we're doing right now, because that's what Bradbury talks about.
yeah,
Take a look at it. It's wild. Like
yeah.
there's a scene where the 17-year-old girl says, "Did you know there's dew on the grass in the morning?" And the 30-something-year-old fireman acknowledges, like, "Did I know that? Did I know that there's dew on the grass?" It's
Hmm.
all about distractions. It's actually
Yeah.
oddly relevant to what we're talking about now. Fahrenheit might either freak you out or really inspire you, because
Yeah.
that's what Bradbury understood in 1950.
Yeah.
1950, they were so distracted. And I'm like, 1950? She notices and she says, "Did you know that they've made the billboards? They used to only be 20 feet long, but people drive so fast. They drive by so fast, they had to stretch out the advertising because people aren't seeing the advertising.
They're
Wasting
missing it.
money.
Yep.
because they're missing it. And
Yep.
even if it's the advertising, they're missing the advertising.
I do think that this is not a new phenomenon,
No, it definitely,
but
there's just different distractions.
yes, and so many. So
Distractible.
some things to think about, some things that I'm practicing. What is one boundary you can set or one practice you can try that will allow you to give yourself the gift of presence, to really slow down, take a moment, stop, smell the roses. What is some sand you can pour out of your jar so that you have room for your rocks?
Or even evaluating your pebbles.
Yeah, your responsibilities. There are some of those that sometimes we think they're pebbles and they're really sand. So, what's one thing you can try, one boundary you can set, or one practice you can try to give yourself the gift of presence? Share in the comments. I would love to hear. As I said, I'm always looking to learn from other people. I guarantee you, some of you have some amazing ideas that might change my life or someone else's. With that being said, also, if this resonated with you at all, please share with a friend. I guarantee you that there are more people out there that struggle with being present, just with
Or just don't know how to slow down.
the distractions and just with the way we live life today. Like, follow, share, and that's all we have for today. Thank you for sticking with me, and I'll see you next time on Dishing with Dr. Duer.